Hi there. Today I want to share with you what I learned about UFOs when I was a stewardess back in the 60s. That's when I started flying in 1967. And one of the things that really got me motivated to become a stewardess back then was a close encounter with three UFOs. One evening, probably in 1966, I saw three of them fly in over the Atlantic Ocean from the area of Martha's Vineyard right up to the shore where I was sitting. And each one was a saucer with a little dome on top, just like they describe. Did the right angle turns, didn't make any noise, and it was very, very profound to see these vehicles that could not be explained as far as being part of anything that I had ever heard the United States was building or any other country. It was very otherworldly, the experience, and very um, provocative in that it opened up my thought so that I could believe things that the average person just couldn't accept after that. And like I say, it motivated me to become a stewardess. And when I started flying, I would always go up to the cockpit if I could to ask the pilots if they'd ever seen any UFOs because I was so fascinated by them. And that was one of the reasons I wanted to fly so that I could actually talk to pilots and find out what they knew. Well, they used to freeze and just not want to respond usually when I brought the subject up. And I found out they were told, I believe, by the government, not necessarily by the airlines individually, although it was a policy at each airline, but it was the government that was mandating this not to ever talk about them or report them, or they could lose their jobs. And, one time I said to one of them, I mean, how did they get you to not talk about something? And they had used someone as an example. One pilot who had reported a sighting was harassed and harassed and harassed. They said they would call him in the middle of the night, all hours of the day, and they just kept saying the same thing to him. And what did you say you saw? Until he finally either quit or committed suicide or something. I can't remember how the story ended, but they got rid of him. And that was the example to them of why they should never, ever talk about it. But I did get some of them to open up. And one pilot even took me to his house to meet his wife because she had had an experience, and we had a great discussion about it. So, knowing that they can put that much pressure on an industry to not talk about something and they get the results they want, what does that tell you? There's a lot of things people don't talk about and they know about, but there are ways they can be threatened. Another time I was talking to a pilot, a captain who had been involved in some secret military aviation situations. And he was kind of opening up and telling me about these secret craft that they had built that the public had no clue about. And I said, well, how do they get people to not talk? And he said, oh, it's easy. They just tell them that, their families will be threatened. They'll lose all the credit. They'll never get a job if they ever open their mouth after they sign these papers saying they'll never disclose. So it's pretty easy to get people to never talk about something if you really want to. But there was another time I was on an airplane talking to a steward, and he had just had an experience where this whole news crew had been on the flight coming back from something they'd been shooting. They had the camera crew on board, and there was some UFOs outside the airplane. Everybody saw them. So the camera crew got the cameras out and took the pictures. And that evening they landed, turned on the nightly news, and they mentioned the incident, but they called it swamp gas. So there you go. They make up stories after people have seen something. In fact, on that flight, I went up to the cockpit and the first officer said, "Oh, I was on that flight too. Yes, we did see them." Nobody could explain what they were, but they definitely were unidentified flying objects. So they've been out there forever. Now, all of a sudden, we're hearing more and more about Navy ships having UFOs hovering over them and pilots reporting them here, and the ones that look like the Tic Tacs. Well, obviously, they want to get people to start thinking about them, but they've been around forever. People have reported things. I read Von Daniken's book when I was a teenager, probably, and he explained how there are drawings in the hieroglyphics in Egypt and ancient civilizations. You see these stone carvings, they look like the typical grays, or looks like an astronaut in a spacesuit. These things were done, thousands of years ago. So I think there's always been something going on this planet that involves extraterrestrial life. If you really dig, you'll see enough evidence to prove it to yourself. But I find it to be a fascinating topic. And I really do feel like seeing those 3 UFOs up close was a very, very life-changing event for me, because after that, I was able to accept things like spiritual healing is real, manifesting is real. We are so much more powerful than just our 5 senses once we learn to take that leap and trust that we have superpowers, and we can do these amazing things. That's why I became a teacher of metaphysics and started training other people in how to use these powers. So if you've seen a UFO, leave a message and let me know. I'd love to hear.